Good morning, everyone. I will call to order the December 19th, 2024 meeting of the trustees of trust funds. First item on the agenda are the approval of minutes of two meetings, the November 26th and the December 3rd special meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
I will second.
Okay, any corrections or omissions, deletions? The only one I was going to ask, my memory is on the November 26th meeting is that in addition to approving the form of the two new trusts, we voted to accept the initial contributions once the trust had been approved by the city council and signed by the donor. Was I wrong about that?
I didn't have that in my notes, but if you feel it is.
Do you, either of you remember that? If not, we can just take the vote this morning, but.
Well,
I don't remember that. I know we accepted the trust, but
Okay, all right, well, then don't worry about it. That was,
there's a note in the minutes about the disbursements come, to come.
right. Yeah, well, it's, again, maybe that's what my intention was, but we can take care of that.
After the city council vote.
Yeah, but my memory was we voted to approve the form of the trust itself, subject to the amendment that Peter made, and subject to, ultimately, to the approval of the city council. And then we also voted, because we knew we were going to get two sets of contributions from the Portsmouth 400 Inc. crowd, we voted to accept the ones that were stated in the documents. But again, we'll just do that this morning. So I will call the question, and we'll have to do this via roll call. All in favor of approving the minutes of each of those meetings, indicate by saying aye.
aye.
Okay, that's a yes on Peter, a yes on Dana, and the chair votes aye.
Okay.
All right, so then we have some monies that have come in. I take it that we have the two checks now?
We do.
Okay,
We have a check for $100,000 to go into the 400th Anniversary Education and Public Art Trust, and $30,000 for the reserve for Portsmouth Settlement Anniversaries from Valerie Rashon.
okay. And so I'd entertain a motion to formally accept those contributions into those trusts.
So move.
We hear a second? Okay. Any further comment? Hearing none. Call the question. Peter?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And now, because we anticipate, before we do the Public Art Trust,
Yep.
we anticipate additional contributions from Portsmouth 400 Inc.
Correct.
when they close out their books at the end of the
Correct.
year. So, because we're not getting together until mid to late January, I would entertain a motion to accept those contributions, even though we don't know the exact amount yet.
Let's wait till we get it.
The problem is, if we get them, we have to hold them until January. We're going to get them before the end of this month. The next 10 days, we're going to get those money.
I think they want the check to clear so that they can close.
Yeah.
Can we do it like-
What I can do is I can deposit the checks when I receive them and put them in a hold account in the trust, so that then you can formally vote to approve them, and then I can move them formally into the trusts.
Yeah.
Is that your preference? I mean,
Yeah, that's. I hate to vote on something we don't know how much it is.
I can hold it.
right. So you'll hold it in an account. So
Correct.
we will
I'll cash
negotiate
the
the check.
check so
Okay.
that it'll clear for them, but I'll hold it. I won't deposit it into the trust. We have a hold account so that the city doesn't like to hold checks. We like to deposit them as quickly as we can. So I will do that. I will put it in the hold account for the trustees and then move it, once you approve it, formally move it into the two trusts.
On the December 31st reports, will that money be reflected or not?
It's reflected, but it's reflected in that hold account. It's not in the trust. It's reflected in a hold account.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just,
I don't know,
that seems,
sounds a little squirrely.
it's like we're taking your money, but we're not taking your money.
It's like receiving a prepayment, but we haven't had approval to apply it yet, so it kind of goes into a prepaid account and is sitting there until we get the approval, and then I'll move it from the prepaid into the trust fund.
Wait, but as Tom asked, will we be able to move it before the end of the year?
No, because we won't get to have a chance to vote on this until like January
Correct.
15th or something.
Can we vote on it by email, or?
I don't, if we're going to vote on it, we have to do it in the context of a meeting, so we'd have to schedule a special meeting.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
I'm not
doing it
going to
that
be here.
way because-
I'm not going to be here all next week.
Yeah.
Well, we could do it on the 31st.
Okay? If hopefully,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Peter, let's just vote to accept the fund.
We're voting to accept something, we don't know what it is.
Yeah, we know it's coming from the same people who we just accepted a contribution fund. What difference does it make whether it's $5,000 or $50,000?
I have a problem with accepting something we don't know. I'm happy to meet on the 31st if that cleans up the books, but
What's your schedule on the 31st? Are you even working that day?
I'm working, but I don't know what I have for meetings and stuff on the 31st. I don't. Again, I've got one person out, and it sounds like my other girl is gone. So I don't know what my schedule is. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, that's a Tuesday. Do we know when? So you're out all next week?
I am out all next week.
All right. I wish I knew when they were going to get the money.
yeah.
Yeah.
Judy, does it make any difference in terms of the calendar year?
No, because we're in fiscal year, so it does not. It's just year end for them. I think they're trying to close out for the nonprofit. I think they want to have everything closed out for year end so that it doesn't carry into another tax year for them. It really has nothing to do with the trustee side.
And your hold account would accommodate that?
Yes, because the check would be cashed,
Well,
the prepaid account.
personally, my preference would be just to vote to accept it, but if not, maybe the hold account is the way to go.
Well, if you're tossing a coin in your brain, which one are you picking?
And I'm okay to vote to accept the funds.
All right. Well, make a motion to that effect. I mean, I would vote to accept it, all things being equal. My usual preference is to have a unanimous vote, but I understand where Peter prefers not. But I think it would be I'd hate to have it roll over into January and the idea of trying to put together a meeting at the last day of the year without Judy even knowing where she's going to be doing.
I'm not sure where I'm at. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not sure where I'm at.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the funds from the trust as they presented.
Yeah, from the Portsmouth 400 Inc., or the P400.
From
group.
400 Inc.
Yep.
Okay. I guess I'll second that. And any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, we'll call it. Start with Peter,
No.
Dana,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, that's a first in all the years we've done this. Okay, now we have some monies from another department in the city for the Public Art Trust.
Right, but you actually voted at the tail end of the special meeting to accept those funds. So technically, it's already been voted upon to accept the $68,000. I didn't realize that when I put it on the agenda, but it has been voted upon.
Yeah, it's in the minutes, actually.
It's in the minutes,
Yeah,
right?
well, okay, so I thought there was another contribution.
No,
coming.
it's
Okay.
that
All right, so we've-
contribution.
All right, so we've already done that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so before we go into Haven, just a couple things. In the materials that Judy sent out a couple of days ago, you have the final copy of the final signed trust for each of the two new trusts.
Right.
You also have, related to the Public Art Trust, you have the new public art ordinance that creates a new reviewing panel and new contribution considerations that was adopted by the City Council back in October. I'm not going to discuss it today, but just look that over, because the terms of the public art trust say that any disbursements we make have to be consistent with the city ordinances as amended. So it incorporates that. So we don't have any requests for monies to come out of that right now, but we should each have looked at this before we deal with another distribution.
But it also will have city council approval vote on any disbursements out of that trust.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know, remember we had the thing last year where we had to have the city council go back and change a particular provision because there were unused monies from a
Right.
particular project.
Yeah,
And they had
the
to
Foundry Garage.
Exactly. So all that has been rewritten and with a review panel. So I'm just saying, when you have a chance, before we get together again, just take a look at that. And if you have any questions, we can discuss them at the next meeting. But that's an informational thing only, really. Okay. All right. So Haven Metal, I assume that Brittany's not coming in. We're just going to
She's
look at
not,
it.
correct.
Okay.
I move we accept the communication from Brittany and concur with her findings.
All right. Well, I was hoping she was going to be here, so I have some findings, but some questions. But I wasn't sure whether, well, let's put aside my questions for a minute. But the next step, I think we had discussed, was once we knew what the city school department wanted to do vis-a-vis the metals, we would have to go to a non-judicial settlement agreement and work with the city attorney's office and the charitable trust unit of the AG's office. And I think if we're okay with this proposal, I guess we'll vote that we are, but it will have to be subject to the terms as approved by the legal department. I don't think we can just simply adopt this without knowing whether it can be negotiated in an acceptable form.
And refer to the legal department to ensure that it's follows the normal procedure.
Right. So let me just toss out some questions I was anticipating I would be able to ask of Brittany. And do we know whether currently there's discretion in the award of these medals?
Financially, or,
No, not for us, but for the school. Ultimately, I think what's going to have to happen is that what's proposed here is going to have to be written in a form that is general enough to be able to be used year after year.
correct.
So we're going to have to add some language that says that if, for instance, the school stops using a B, C, D, E, F grade rating system, that some equivalent would be used, stuff like that. But when I read this, I was looking in particular the core courses of study. It said that there's one at each of these core courses. The recipient has to have all A's and must be in the top 5% of the class. So that doesn't say you get the highest grade. It simply says you just have to get all A's and be in the top 5%. So there could be 5 people in
Yes.
English study alone. So how does that, who determines who gets that?
I think she did indicate there is some discretion.
And is that the way it works?
Because when you take the other subjects, the same thing applies, and they try to allocate it across the qualified candidate. That was my impression, but it's a good question.
I know that she did say generally it tends to be the top person, GPA-wise or grade-wise. It tends to be that person, but
All right, well, so that was one question. And then, under the General Excellence Award, I take it that a CTE student would not qualify to get a General Excellence Award?
Yeah, that's the way I read this.
Is that the way you read it?
Yeah.
So that's okay, right? And then it talked about how, this is under the core course of study, it says, must have all A's for 3 or more credits in one of the content areas listed above, the core areas. Is 3 or more credits 3 courses, or is there more than 1 credit per course, or?
I am not sure.
No, I think it's 1 credit per course.
All right.
I believe.
So part of the
In other
reason,
words, they need at least 3 years of English to qualify.
okay. So the credit is the issue. Now, the reason we actually met, the Economic Development Commission met at the high school with the CTE folks last week, and they handed out some materials. They talked about the coursework, and it looks like some of these courses have 3 credits, not 1. So, for instance, it talks about, this is where the high school works with the Great Bay Community College, and you can get Great Bay credits for courses you take in the high school. And it's, for instance, Introduction to Business is worth 3 credits at the college level.
Yeah, interesting. Now, that's because they're getting college credits, so they're going with the college credits per course.
Yeah. So I guess the answer to this may be, I view this as what the school would like to see at this point. But I see some ambiguity in it. So I think maybe that what we need to do is to, rather than bring Brittany back in again, would be to work with the legal department to get something designed, described that would pass muster, and then go back to the school department and say, is this what you want, or can you live with this? But we probably have to deal with these issues like discretion. So we're probably going to have to come up with something.
Can I add one more
Absolutely.
concern relative to the language to give just, ultimate discretion, and that's under career tech. It says they're only going to have 2 recipients at this point in time. They have, I don't know how many programs, 7 or 8
Yeah,
programs?
there are
Well,
8. Yeah.
8. So I would just encourage that the language be flexible enough so that if they decide in the future to award more than 2, it's easily done.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's,
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on this before we turn it over to the next level? Okay. So now we'll take your motion as so amended.
yeah,
Did you get all that, Judy?
Yeah, Peter Weeks moved to accept the proposal from the high school group as drafted and refers it to the legal department to follow normal procedures on making the changes to the trust.
Okay.
Well, I'd be careful about as drafted.
Okay.
Well, that's what we're trying to clarify. So
Yep. So how do you want it worded?
would you accept a friendly amendment
as drafted and amended.
based on the discussion at this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we hear a second to that?
Second.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll here. Peter?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right. I'll reach out to Trevor, Judy, just so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, when you meet with him, I'd like to be involved as well.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so the next item are the TD reports. These are the ones that look good, because this month it might not look so good.
Yesterday, won't.
Would anybody like a big printout?
I would.
Peter, are you good?
Yes,
or-
please.
Yeah. That one, bigger papers.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you want to add any comment to these? Maybe start with the TD
Yeah, so
dashboard?
the TD dashboard for November, up, the combined average is about 4.72%. He hasn't listed separately, but, we had a good month in November. Current balance for all four accounts is 27.5 million and some change. So that is, I believe that's the highest it's ever been.
By far.
Yep. So,
I was thinking with the rate the market was improving and the contributions we just received, that we were going to cross the $28 million mark, but
I
That's
don't know
not
about
gonna
this
happen.
month.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then, my monthly analysis, you have the graph chart showing November of this year all the way back to November of last year. So it's a year's worth of graph activity that you can see. It's certainly looking better than it has in a while. And then the large chart is the year-to-date activity with TD that you can see. There were no withdrawals this month, no money coming out, so it was a good month.
In January, will we do a withdrawal for the
Yes.
Prescott Park? one?
We will.
Yep.
We will be doing a withdrawal for Prescott Park. We will have checks to sign in January. Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Questions about any of these reports? Okay.
And we are waiting on Christine. She's supposed to be here around 8. Just an FYI. While we're waiting, if it's all right with you, I did receive a check in the mail for the cemetery fund, the trust, for $2,500 from Ann Hartman that she would like to have deposited into the Historical Cemeteries Trust. So apologies that it wasn't on the agenda. I just got the check.
Okay. She probably wants to get it in this year.
She is.
Yeah, very generous.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the historic.
Does the city council have to accept these funds?
Not if it's sent right to the trust. We've never done it that way before. Yeah. I just like to bring attention, anything that size. I mean, I'd like to recognize it.
Yeah, when the city adopted their donation policy about 15 months or so ago, they exempted funds received by us.
Yeah.
So
Oh, right, I remember that, right.
if it comes directly to us, then,
Correct.
we have the right to reject it or accept it, but we don't have to send it to the council first. So right now, that trust only has, or as of the end of June, it only had a $3,800 balance, so this significantly increases that.
It does.
Now, is this one where the monies that are in that trust right now were city appropriated funds?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet or not. A lot of those I think are donations, but I have not been able to clarify that yet, Tom.
Okay. So the monies that we're going to vote to accept today, where will those be deposited?
Into that trust.
Okay. All right. So it's just something we need to
We do. We need to clarify that.
identify.
I have it on the agenda for January to be able to run through that.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, I guess we'll entertain a motion to accept the trust from Ms. Hartman, the donation from Ms. Hartman into the Historic Cemetery Trust.
So move. And Judy,
Yes.
when you get a chance, I would suggest you send a
thank you.
copy to,
Oh.
I believe it's Mrs. Sterry, who is the chairman of the cemetery committee.
Okay. Copy to
Susan Sterry,
chairman
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
of cemetery committee. Okay.
Make her aware that the trustees have received that money.
I will do that.
We hear a second to Peter's motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Roll call, Peter?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, for informational purposes, I had Judy send you the MS9s and MS10s, just so you know what has been filed with the state and have now been accepted, right?
Correct. I'll shut the door. I got it.
We don't have any materials from Christine to
No,
look at?
I mean, I don't have, she didn't give me anything, so I don't have anything
Okay.
from her.
I mean, you know, a couple of meetings ago, you put together a schedule of how much is in all those accounts.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for her, do you have some checks for us to sign?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
That makes it easy.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Why don't we go to the public discussion and
Yes.
take care of that?
please step forward, whoever. Yes, I recall when we started this process that you made a search for some of these library fund documents, and you gave us copies of some of them.
The ones that I've been able to find to date, yes.
And then there's a common trust 1 and a common trust 2.
Correct.
Explain why there are two trusts like that.
It appears that there were several estates with wills that came in roughly in the same time period. If you look at, you know, it lists
Yeah,
on the
one's-
document that I send. Hi, Christine.
One is 1962, the other 72.
Correct. And so there were just some estates that came together, and that's how the trust was evidently put together.
Okay. All right, well,
What was the total, Judy?
The total for
The fund,
the what?
the library, the total of the library fund?
The total funds, the last time I calculated it out, this is principal and interest, this is everything together, for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 funds is $873,000. The bulk of that is with the Fernald Trust, which is $659,000. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
so you have the Common Trust 1 and the Common Trust 2 are on the MS-10, and the other ones are in the MS-9?
Correct, because it's how those are classified, so they have to be shown on the MS-10 as well.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get to our guest of honor here. And welcome, Christine.
Thank you, sir.
We've done everything else we need to do, so you have the floor.
Wow. Okay. Good morning, Dana, and good morning. I don't think we've met.
Morning.
That's Peter Weeks. You-
Yes, I knew Peter's name, but I don't think we've met past in the past. But, well, I have just curiosity about what happens here. We've had meetings over the years. When I was assistant director, we had some meetings about our trustee monies and what they were different, how they were different from your monies. And then we've had some talks about how things operate, a few talks on how things operate. I am now moving into a new project for my pre-retirement project. I told Karen my last thing would be to identify ways to have more revenue streams for the library. Because when I was hired 10 years ago, I was shocked and dismayed that the library has nothing but city funds. It's very precarious, as I'm sure you are all well aware, if we hit a recession or things just have to be tightened for whatever reason. So most libraries have library friends, which our library had before I came on board. They had been disbanded, and my predecessor tried to get a new group together, but nobody was willing. And I've talked to the state librarian about opportunities and suggestions, and his suggestion was that we build a foundation. And he felt that the Seacoast was a good place and that our library was a good library to recommend building a separate foundation rather than a friends group. We don't have an annual giving. We don't have planned giving, any of that, and a foundation would be a place where that could happen separate from us, but with benefit to the library. So I'd really like to understand how you operate with the monies that were given to you, and I don't know the history, although I know we have a Fernald fund at the library as well that I have to report on every year. But I don't know what the rules are with those funds. I know the rules are the ones that are held by the trustees, and it would help for me to understand.
Library trustees, you mean?
Correct. Yeah, and I had talked to Dana about this when we were visiting a couple months ago. The RSAs we have a whole section, as some people will say libraries are the only thing that has its own section, but probably not the case. But they're written in a funny way because they're written with the assumption that you are a standalone independent library. And then there are a few things thrown in if you're a city library. But overall, we have to kind of play with them because most libraries in New Hampshire are independent entities, and they get money from their town, but they're not a part of the town. And so they have to go to the town every year, town meeting, or however they operate, and say, we'd like this money, whereas I go to the city council and say, I'd like this money. So we operate in a little bit of a different way. But they stipulate, that, if what you are doing, if someone gives money to the city for the benefit of the library, the trustees of the trust control those monies and provide money to the library. But then there's a separate section on if money is given to the trustees or to the library, the trustees handle that, and that is what I report on every year. I get to do an MS 9 and 10.
Trustees.
My trustees, exactly.
Trustees of the library.
Yeah, so it gets tricky, right. And so they have always had, since one of the trusts that I just used up a year or two ago in my attempt to make things simpler was from planned giving, someone's will in 1932. So this is, very long term. And some of them, like yours, I imagine, have very strong stipulations. Some of ours, you can't ever touch the principal. You can only touch interest. Some you can spend. Some are stipulated for books or children's programs or some special area. Some are wide open. And so it's...
All 7 of yours are income. You can expend the income, but the principal.
That's in what you hold.
Correct.
I'm talking about the ones we hold.
Okay.
So our trustees hold money at the moment in Piscataqua and at Vanguard. And they have always had a very conservative, holding the value rather than growth in their policies.
What's the total of that? Is that 700,000 or 800,000?
No, it's about 150,000 at the moment. 140. I don't have the numbers with me, but it's, yeah,
And that's all the trustees of the library control?
yep, correct. Yeah.
Who manages it?
The trustees, our treasurer, in conjunction with me, but there's almost no doing. It's in an index fund in Vanguard, and it's in an account at Piscataqua. So it's an interest earning, but as we know, not a lot of interest, and it's paid down as we need it. But we also have funds within the city, so we don't take that money very often, because we have funds in the city like the money that we earn from non-resident fees, from lost items. We used to have overdue fines. We don't now. Photocopying, coffee machine, all those things, which are also in the RSA, interestingly enough. It's like, for anything money you make off of equipment, money-making equipment, that money has to go for books and supplies. So we've got all kinds of fun stipulations to track. And so we will take money. For instance, we're getting a new system to run our computers and our printing and copying. And so my hope is that it will pay for itself. And I'll take money out of the fund where we put the copier money in order to pay for the system. And then hopefully going forward, I can wean us off the city budget for that line item. Because the paper and the ink will be paid for by the people making copies. That's my hope. I'm still in my budget now just to make sure it's going to work, but that is the hope, that we just raise the price and say, it's now 25 cents. We're still cheaper than anyone in photocopies. People tell us all the time it's cheaper than Kinko's or wherever else they can get copies. So it's a service, and we're not a money-making organization. We're not trying to be, but we try to cover our costs because we don't want the taxpayers to have to pay for anything they don't have to.
Judy, you mentioned the Fertile Trust.
Correct.
And how much is that?
659, almost 659,000.
Okay, so where is that located? Is that within the trustees?
Yes, and it's in the investment fund with TD.
Okay.
Yep.
So, as I understand it from Judy, we get a check drawn once a year on those interests.
Which will be next month.
Yep, and then,
All of the interest that's earned, that's expendable, that you can take.
right,
And it goes towards, 6 of them goes towards books, 1 of them goes towards one of the schools specifically, but towards books, and then the Levinson, which is programs, Peter, correct? Excuse me, Dana?
but we don't, that's not in the check.
We don't usually cut a check for that. What happens
That's-
is that comes in
Right,
if it's expensive.
right, and we've discussed that,
So
how
you
we
get-
might use that. yeah.
Basically, there's six trusts that you get funds from.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what came up in discussions years ago, we were asked by legal why the trustees held monies. Our trustees held any monies instead of you holding it. And the main answer is that according to the RSA, we have to have access to it at any time. And so a once-a-year check is not enough access for us because if my trustees decide in September that I should have $30,000 to pay for a speaker or for whatever reason, I can't wait till there's a check cut.
It does depend on how
Years
the
later.
trust would be set up, though. If those trusts are set up that you can come in at any time and take money, we have trusts that are set up that way where I literally get the hey, we need this money. I let TD know, they transfer the money in, and I cut a check, and it's all within a...
Oh, okay.
time.
All right. Yep, I wasn't aware of that.
It does depend on how the trusts are set up. These are more restricted because it's just based on interest income, and we calculate that usually at year end because it fluctuates up and down. We could have one month where we're not making the same, the investments are not making the same amount of money. Last
Sure.
month was a great month if we based it on that,
This week is not.
This week is not. So
Yep.
that's why it's kind of done that way. But if you have trusts that can be expended at any time, and they were to come under the trustees, we have those type of trusts where, Prescott Park's a fine example, twice a year, they come in, we know when it is, but I just let TD know, hey, they're going to draw from these trusts. It's like within 24 hours that the money's in our checking account, and I'm able to issue a check for that. Obviously with the trustees' approval always. But,
Sure.
It is quick. It's not like waiting weeks and weeks.
Okay,
Just an
that's great to
FYI.
know.
Yeah.
That's great to know, because I personally detest, it is the worst part of my job, honestly, to do the MS 9 and 10. It is absolutely the worst. It's what I dread every year at the end of the fiscal year. Oh my gosh, it's awful. Because, I'm sure you guys have bigger ones, but I just feel like a complete idiot. I'm looking at all these things and saying, we took money from here, but then we earned interest. How much interest goes into this one? And it's a nightmare. So
Change the rules.
from my point of view, you controlling that would be not a problem. But from my trustee's point of view,
Yeah.
it may not, it may be. And I would be happy to take this back to them. Do we want to have you, who are doing this in much bigger amounts, take over handling things for us?
Again, it would have been, I would think that the trustees would want to see how the trusts are written and all of that, but
Yeah, so let me add a little more context.
Yep.
So there is this odd thing of two different sets of trustees, but I think that comes from historically, as you said, almost all libraries started off as private libraries in communities, even in the larger communities. And so the legislator wanted to make sure there was regulations controlling what private trustees were doing with these library funds.
Correct.
And if you go through the library statute, you'll see that there's this process by which if a local library decides to shut down or can't afford to run itself, that it ends up becoming absorbed by the town.
Right.
And then that's when the regular trustees kick in. If
Yep.
you're a private library, you're not covered by the trustees
Right.
trust fund.
Right.
And so over time, a number of New Hampshire private libraries became town libraries.
Correct.
And they were still holding those funds, and that town library thing never changed. And that's why, even a municipal library is subject to contributions that are made directly to it.
Right.
But, so the key with us is to understand that, we do have the benefit of having volume.
Right.
And that gives us buying power.
Sure.
And gives us the advice of professional money management and financial management. But we still end up having to go by whatever the terms are. So,
Sure.
So we've got, like $11 million worth of scholarship funds with, different, eligibility requirements.
That's fun.
But we don't do that. So we manage.
You manage the money.
And we don't, we're not like private individuals, so we can't just decide we're going to buy some Tesla stock and watch it grow. And
Right.
we're subject to fiduciary, fairly conservative management techniques in which we have a dual goal of raising enough income to support the cause, but also allowing for
Protecting them.
growth. And then like the scholarships in particular, most of them say we can only disperse the actual earnings on that. We can't disperse the original principal or that type of thing. We do have an exceptions, like the one that Judy mentioned, the Prescott Park one. But we had to go and get an approval from the state to do it, but we have a rolling average on that one where we can actually take a portion of the principal every year, depending on the total worth of the thing, and that determines how much we contribute. We get to decide whether it's going to be 4% or 4.5% or 3%,
Right.
those type of things. But we had to go get approval from the state before we could do that.
Okay.
So, every time someone comes in, we have to vote to approve it. And in particular with scholarships, people come in, we've now created a scholarship policy that talks about whether they can, we can essentially burn down the principal over a period of time, or we can
Okay.
only, just distribute earnings on it. We're happy to work with you on your ones.
Okay.
We'd have to look at the terms of the documents. It would be difficult if we started writing checks out every month.
Yeah. No, we don't. As I say, we don't use it that often, but
Because of the, if nothing else, you want to avoid the ups and downs that occur within a.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I'm sure we can do it. We've had this kind of conversation on a very preliminary level for several years.
Yep.
Periodically, someone comes in. I think the last time it was Marilyn Burke came in, and she had just become a
Trustee.
advisor to the library trustees.
She was on our board. Yep.
But even before that, I'm trying to remember, maybe it even goes back as far as Peter Torrey or something, but, and nothing comes of it, mostly because I think your trustees have said, no, we'll just continue to do it the way it is.
That's interesting, and I think it's changed. My impression, my historic perception, working with my predecessor, was that, Mary Ann List felt very strongly about retaining control of it. And my predecessor was in the middle there, like, why? Did she have some great reasons, or was that tradition? Why was that? I had not heard my trustees having a strong opinion. They may, which is why I said I'd take it to them and see if they do. They don't do much, as I say, they don't do much with it. I have to do the MS 9 and 10. And as with all of the finances, I report to them every time we have a trustee meeting, and I say, here's the money held by our city accounts and our budget, and here's the money held by the trustees. And they say, okay. And I will occasionally say, I need money from this account. Would you vote on that, please? And they tell me what I can do. But they're not very hands-on, and I wonder if any of them would really care. But I'd be happy to talk to my treasurer first and see what she thinks about that.
Wait, excuse me, I'm a little
Sure.
confused. Are we all suggesting that the trustees absorb your trust funds?
I'm just saying that that's a potential.
I guess the reason I'm wondering whether that's something in our capacity to do if these were given directly to the library. Which brings me to the question, if someone today in their estate left funds to go directly to the Portsmouth Library, what would happen?
It would go to our trustees.
They go to the library.
Yeah. So sometimes people write a check or write their will to the city of Portsmouth to benefit the library, and that comes to your funds. We have not had a big one at all since the capital campaign.
Right. So that makes me question if someone leaves it directly to the library.
Okay.
And we just acknowledge that it would go to your trustee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's appropriate for us to
Transfer.
take it on.
Yeah, that's a legal question. I don't know.
This is the conundrum we've been in for years.
Yep. Well, and it would be nice for us to document this. I didn't know about the previous visits you've had. I knew about my discussion with Bob Sullivan and my predecessor about, why this operates this way. But it would be great.
I know Bob has always taken the position if anyone wanted to leave funds for the benefit of the library, his position has been it should be a city trust under the city trust, under the trustees of the trust for the benefit of the library. And that's And that's the reason, I know personally, the Levinson Trust was done that way, as opposed to leaving it directly to the library.
Yep.
That was at his direction.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have, as I say, I don't have a strong feeling either way about it. But I'm happy to, if we thought that it was legally something that we could do given the trust, and I can pull all of our trust documents from Mary Ann's files or her predecessor's files, or but whether we do or not, it would be nice if I document what we go through here so that my successor doesn't do the same thing I'm doing and that Steve did and that Mary Ann did, that we can lay to rest in some way. This is what we decided should be happening.
Are you retiring?
Not this year. No. Eventually, yes.
Going to Italy.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think, so some of the conversations, I think one of the reasons they haven't gone too far is, and I have to say that I've sometimes had these informal conversations with somebody from the library that wasn't in the context of a meeting, and there were things like, well, can we just put our money with you, but still have the library trustees sort of in charge of it? And that's problematic.
Yeah, sure.
We have, legal obligations with respect to the funds that
Of course.
are covered by the trustees of trust funds. So Dana's absolutely right. Whatever we would do, we would have to clear with legal. And I would almost want to suggest that it might be, we might want the city council to sign off on it as well. So if you want to explore this further, I think the question would be, see if your trustees are so inclined, and then we'd start a conversation with legal department and do it in the context of almost like a reorganization or something.
Okay.
Does that
Sorry.
make sense?
Yes. Sorry. Something's buzzing.
It's a little off subject here, but when you talk about, and I know you have a calendar that's unbelievable, because I get the electronic version, and it takes me 10 minutes just to scroll up through the thing.
Good.
We have some funds that I think could potentially be used by the library or by others who've never asked us. And I always think about the Hodgson Trust that was set up.
Oh, right, that's a good one.
So we had this.
What is this?
The Hodgson family set up a trust fund that was intended to fund travel presentations.
Ooh.
So every year, it paid for having some person like a Steve
I love it.
Reeves type of guy who would come to the high school and do a presentation on traveling. And at some point, in the Hodgson family was making the choices and stuff like that, and
Okay.
then they'd let us know, and we'd issue a check to them. And they've just lost interest in doing that. So now we have this dormant account that sits there.
Huh.
And as long as it is related to that subject matter, and we could help fund stuff like that. So there may be other ones, but I always remember that one because I don't think we've drawn off that in over 10 years at this point.
Not as long as I've been here.
Yeah, so we kind of had this exercise a little bit when the city was putting together its 400th
Right.
thing. Valerie came in and asked for any trust documents that would any way be really, and we gave her several, and she kind of tried to figure out whether they could squeeze the 400th into that. But given how broad your,
Yeah, that's great to know.
just something might be worth looking
Okay.
into. Again,
Right.
it's off subject with what we're talking about, but.
No, it's a very popular subject here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foreign language groups at the library, and we have a world affairs group. And the city are very well traveled and are very interested in global perspectives. And so we've had people come in and talk about their trip somewhere, but they were not the professionals. So that's something that would probably strike a chord, and I'll take it to my programming person to see.
Well, is that something that's handy, or that would be a pain to pull that up somewhere?
I don't know if that's one of the ones that we've got a copy readily available, but let me look for it.
Right, well,
After the holidays is fine.
Well, she's going to be particularly short-handed
Yes.
in about a week, so
Oh, no.
I don't want to add something onto your,
Well, I'll
both
look.
her assistants
I
are
have-
going out.
I have.
Everyone is.
I have files for each trust, so if there's a copy in there, then it's literally opening the drawer, so I can look to see what I've got handy.
Right, if it's not a burden, if you could just do that and
Yes,
send it.
I can.
Send it to the three of us and, well,
Yes.
Christine, and that, I mean, that just might be a way of helping support your programming consistent with what our,
That's great. Because, my goal in all of this with the foundation of additional revenues is, I feel very strongly, as do other library directors, that every town and city needs a good functioning library, that is just a necessity for happy citizens and civic engagement. But there are things in it, like a $20,000 speaker, or $50,000 nowadays, I think, I would never dream to put on my budget for taxpayers. That's just, I feel like that's icing on the cake. And there's a lot of things like that I think a foundation with fundraising, with planned giving, with going for grants could do on top of the basic operations that a good library has. So we currently have about 1,500 programs a year, and some of those, most of those are we either don't pay or we pay someone an honorarium, $150, $200. But other funds, grants, I've applied for a federal grant, and we'll see if that comes through. But that kind of money is for kind of what I call icing that I don't think should be a tax burden. So any ideas that you have for that of other funds would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any thoughts about these other, since you're just working in this area, if you have any other thoughts about things like my building the foundation, people who might be good advisors, people who might be willing to serve on the initial board to get it up and running. My trustees are very excited about it, but can always use expertise. And if you also have any warnings, I've had libraries, when I worked at the state level, I used to hear libraries who had issues with their friends groups, where the friends groups tried to take over the library, which is a lot of fun. And I'm sure some foundations have done the same, where if it's not laid out in the bylaws, this is your role, that they come in and suddenly say, we're going to redo your landscaping or something, and the library says, that's not what we need. That's our money. We're going to do what we want. So if you have any ideas about any aspects of this, I'd welcome your insights.
pay close attention to what college alumni try to do and avoid that.
Oh, really?
Oh, sure. The alumni think that they know how to run the schools.
Right, yeah. Not surprised.
It's the Phyllis Hodgins one. It's the
Phyllis Hodgins.
right, and that has a beginning of the year balance of like $469,000. And
She was an art teacher
Oh, I was going to ask what the connection is. Okay.
at Portsmouth High School.
And loved travel, or
I guess.
yeah, it's not an arts trust. It's a travel.
So
That's interesting.
We'd have to look at it because,
Yeah.
it may be that you'd have to work with the school department. So,
Sure.
so some of these things are, they're not just buckets of money you can put your hand in. You've got to.
Darn, I was hoping you'd find me a bucket of money. Okay.
Yeah, we can, but it's just very small. But so there's some monies out there that from our perspective, we try to do the best we can with them, but part of our job is to make sure that they serve the purposes for which they were formed in the first place.
Yeah, and I find the tracking of that I find tricky. I think on when you sent me a check, I think there were 2 lines, maybe like
Yeah.
for use lines, and that's, as I'm doing the MS9 and 10, I'm always cognizant that I have to be very careful when we take out $20,000 from the funds, that this percentage is for books, and this percentage is, it's doesn't make me want to dig into those monies very often when we have any alternative. I appreciate why people do it. It's just, it's a lot of tracking. But anyway. Was there something else we talked about, Dana, that when you and I met?
No, I
that
think we make that coverage.
Okay.
So I think the next step would be to just talk it over with your trustees, see if there is an appetite for doing something.
Yeah.
And if there is, then the step after that would be to probably have a conversation with legal about what can be done, what can't be done, and see if there is a way of.
And if there isn't, maybe you and I could sit down and write out documentation of what we went through and just say, for posterity,
Yeah, or
we've been down this road, and
or get legal to do it so that there's a file sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
The next attorney who has to answer that question.
right. Yeah, I'd like it in our archives to, I'm,
It could be everywhere, but,
yeah.
the trustees don't last forever. The legal department does, but,
We hope, yeah. Well, we hope that the trustees of the trust last forever, anyway.
well, but I keep thinking about our archive project, that, this will be a permanent file in the archive project.
Yes. Yes.
Anything else?
I don't think so. Any questions for me?
Just keep up the good work.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
We will try. Thank you so much for all you do.
Steve?
It seems like a heavy lift to me, and
Yeah, the heavy lifting is over in that corner over there.
yeah. Well, I hope you all have a peaceful and happy holiday season.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, you too.
Send the,
All right, so no other business on the agenda, so unless somebody has some new business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I will second.
And we'll call the roll. Peter?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you.